independent public commission, and everything we do needs to be in the public eye, especially when we're having meetings out in the community. We want people to feel comfortable that we are sticking to the rules. And when we meet with the partisan clubs, it even gets more suspicious to some people, quote unquote suspicious. Anyway, I am a former member of this club. I have attended meetings in the past. I know many of you by faces and a lot of you by name, and some of you I know by hugs. It's good to see you, Teresa. And I saw Kelly earlier. So I have been around for a while. I'm really, really excited to be representing all of California in the Redistricting Commission. And thank you for inviting me to share my own backyard, what we're doing. This is actually the third presentation I do this week in North San Diego County. So I think North San Diego County will be very, very engaged and well represented in our process, which I'm excited about. Let me share my screen now. Are you seeing it?
Yes.
Good. It's always that one moment of stress, right? Okay, so let me make it pretty now for you. There you go. As I said, thank you so much for inviting the California Citizen Redistricting Commission. The reason I actually applied to the Redistricting Commission is after I lost my reelection campaign for the Encinitas School Board, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. I am better in the background than I am in the front. I always have enjoyed that aspect of it, and I've always been involved with the community. So it wasn't something that I was going to go away, but I just had to find a new way to support folks. I have been doing civic engagement and kind of engaging in electoral for a long time, and believe that everybody has a voice. The one thing Bob didn't share about me is I am an immigrant from Mexico. I was born to a Peruvian mother and an Argentine father, and that really fuels a lot of my passion and my love for California and for communities. I'm always looking to see, how are Latinos being represented, how are immigrants being represented, who's not being represented or heard or seen. So I'm not allowed to take any input today about the lines, so we can't talk about what's working, what's not working. All of that will be done publicly. All 14 commissioners want to hear about it. At any point, though, you can send us input at wedrawthelinesca.org. And I'll tell you a little bit later about the tools we have in place, and what we might be doing considering the pandemic will be continuing and how we'll be engaging the community. I don't need to tell you all this. I know you already know this, and I've already heard you talk about redistricting, but redistricting is redrawing the lines that we do state assembly, state senate, congressional, as well as the Board of Equalization lines. So those are 4 different maps that we will be submitting. Communities change. I mean, just think about where you were 10 years ago, who was living in your home at that point, where you were living, where you were working. So we know that communities change, and districts need to be updated to reflect those changes every 10 years. These changes may include people passing away, being born, moving within California, out of California, throughout California, and some communities grow, some communities shrink. We need to make sure that the numbers stay equal in all districts. And as demographics change, new communities have different priorities, interests, and goals. One of the greatest powers that we all have is electing our own representatives to conduct the business of our government. And how the district boundaries are configured can make a difference between empowering, maximizing the voter's voice, or minimizing and muting those voices. In most of their states, as Bob said, the politicians redraw the districts, and they often end up drawing safe districts for themselves to allow them to stay in office. Redistricting has been used at times to exclude communities from political power. By fully participating in and monitoring the upcoming redistricting process, more communities may have the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. Speaking up about your community is critical to help keep your community whole to the extent possible. This ensures that your voice is heard by your elected leaders when making decisions such as the quality, funding for housing, environment, roads, and determining your tax rates. Your input is valuable in shaping the new political boundaries. There are several ways that redistricting directly affects you and your community. The Voters First Act, which was historic in California, and I'm sure many of you remember it, we voted for it in 2008. It transformed the power of drawing district maps away from politicians and gave it to the people. To do this successfully, we need to hear from the people. We want it, having the opportunity to elect the representative champion, it gives you that opportunity for that person to champion your issues. At a state like California, there are so many different issues. It's important to have that voice. Tied to the issues of electing representatives that champion your issues, you might want to elect a representative that have your interest at heart when the time comes to build a budget. You will want representatives fighting to ensure your community gets the money and programs it deserves, such as money for education, water, fire protection. The redistricting process is all about drawing the lines and determining which communities get grouped into districts. Your input in this process is essential to help commissioners understand where the community starts and ends. Redistricting in California is one of the few civic activities that all Californians can provide input to regarding their community that ultimately impacts the laws and regulations, tax structures, how funding is distributed, and which services are provided. And I'd like to repeat, all Californians are eligible to participate in the redistricting effort. Doesn't matter your age, your citizenship, if you're registered to vote or not, all are eligible. There are three ingredients or three sets of data that we need to draw successful maps. We need the census data, reapportionment numbers, and input, the community of interest input. The U.S. Constitution requires that every American receive as close to equal representation as possible in the government. As the populations of districts change over time, it can leave some people overrepresented and others underrepresented. And that's why we do the redistricting. After the federal government publishes the updated census information, which we'll discuss later is going to be late this year, California must redraw the boundaries of its congressional, state senate, state assembly, and state board of equalization districts so that they correctly reflect the new counts. At the federal level, reapportionment takes place to reallocate U.S. House seats among the states. This information is also late. It was supposed to come at the end of 2020, and it probably won't arrive until July, I think is the new date. This too is done after each national census to ensure that the seats are held by the states in proportion to the size of the population. California currently has 53 House seats. They may change after we get the updated census, and as you know, they most likely are going to change to, it might be the first time in our history that we actually get less seats. And it's, less seats doesn't mean that we just pull out a congressional district. It means we start from fresh and we build all the districts from there. Historically, legislators have drawn maps that allow them to choose their voters rather than enabling voters to choose their representative. This former system undermines the concept of fair representation, which is to give people the power to choose their representatives. So this is an example of a community that has 60 orange people and 40 purple people. And in this community, you can see by this example why an independent redistricting commission is important. The ones that say fair would be done by an independent redistricting commission, and yeah, that's our take on it. And in the past, when the politicians made their own lines, you usually ended up with gerrymandering, which means creating those communities that favored them, those districts that favored them. As you can see, the two two under fair You have 3 orange and 2 purple districts in both of them. They look different, but they're both representative. So no, there is no one way to do the maps. There are different ways that we may end up doing the maps, and they can still be fair. Also, another piece that's important is to notice that in the 2 fair ones, one looks pretty and very, linear, and the other one looks a little messier. That's okay. That sometimes we need to draw the maps that way to make sure that we're keeping communities together. So after we get the data, we need to follow 6 rules. So this is our criteria, and we need to follow them in this order. The first one comes from the Constitution of the United States, which says that every district must be nearly equal population. And then we need to follow the Voting Rights Act to ensure that that minorities have a fair opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. The third is districts must be drawn contiguously so that all parts of the district are connected to each other. This also gets people away from gerrymandering. If you look at old districts, sometimes the districts weren't all touching each other, so now they need to touch each other. Everyone being represented. Districts must minimize the division of cities, counties, neighborhoods, and communities of interest to the extent possible. So this is number 4. It is really, really important to us, especially the communities of interest. And this is where we collect the data from all of you. Hearing from you helps us with 2, the Voting Rights Act, as well as 4, the communities of interest. The 5th, if it works well for us, we make sure that it's geographically compact. That doesn't mean that's a nice square box. We're really talking about density, not shape, so that people are close to each other and are compact. And where practical, each Senate district should comprise of 2 adjacent assembly districts. The Board of Equalization districts should comprise of 10 Senate districts. Usually we don't get to number 6 because the number 1 through 5 makes it almost impossible for 6 to work well. The final point, which is very unique to California, is we're not allowed to know the residence of incumbents or political candidates when we're creating the maps. So we're drawing it blind and giving everybody kind of the same opportunity to run. I don't want to skip telling you that there are different redistricting efforts taking place. So in our county, in San Diego, we have an independent redistricting commission for the county of San Diego. And so I'd hope that you would get involved in that redistricting efforts as well. You might have heard that the city of San Diego has a redistricting commission, as well as Chula Vista. And pretty soon, Sweetwater will be starting their redistricting efforts. I think Maricosta College already did their efforts a few years ago. But it's a good opportunity to keep your eyes out and make sure that when you're responding to one of these redistricting efforts, that you're sure which one you're talking to. This is just a quick history. So in 2008, we voted Proposition 11 in. In 2010, we voted Proposition 20 in, which added congressional districts. So originally, we were only looking at the state. Voters said, you know what, let's add congressional as well. And then 2010, we had our first redistricting commission. So I am a member of the second redistricting commission. We like to say we're the first, though, during a pandemic. We started a movement here in California that has spread, and I want you to know that in San Diego, we started a movement because San Diego was the first to have an independent redistricting commission at the local level. I'm sure many of you applied for the commissioners. There was over 20,000 applications. It was a quick little survey. And then from there, they sent us the supplemental application, which was basically a graduate school application. It was 5 essay questions, 3 letters of recommendation, and a bunch of questions about your financials and such. There was an interviewing process. They kind of kept dwindling it down to until they finally got to 120 applicants, and they were a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent that worked at the state auditor's office. So it's just 3 people going through all these applications. 120 got interviews. They whittled it down to 60 applicants who went to the legislature. The legislature got to strike 12 from each party. That pool ended up being 35, and they did a lottery. It looked like a bingo ball lottery. And they picked the first 8. I was not picked in the first 8. Those 8 selected the final 6. So I was very honored to be selected. So this is who we are. Our pictures, and it's probably the first time I get to be very open about my political party and my political preference. But there's 14 of us, and it is the most diverse, unique, great group of people I've ever worked with. There are 7 from Northern California, 7 from Southern California, 8 women, 6 men. We range from 30 to in our 60s. There are nonprofit leaders, engineers, pastors, law enforcement officers, political scientists, lawyers, and public servants. You're welcome to watch any of our meetings and even participate. They're all online. We have one on Monday through Wednesday, or maybe Monday and Tuesday. We have them pretty often, a lot more often than I thought when I applied. And if you want to participate and you do need an interpreter, just let us know and we'll make sure we have an interpreter for you. So our duties includes this: outreach, making sure that people know about redistricting, learning about how best to engage folks, and then drawing the maps. The 4 maps that you see here at the bottom are the state, are Sacramento maps, in what Sacramento looks like in 4 different maps. I'm trying to go through this because I know your meeting's ending soon. So we have how do you even start with California? Yeah, this was my task. I volunteered to be on the outreach committee. Only 2 of us. That's 2 of us on the outreach committee. And what we thought, we started with the census kind of regions, and then we turned them in. Then we modified them to fit us. But we have 2 commissioners on each of these zones, outreach zones. I have Outreach Zone K with Commissioner Ahmad, and then I'm also on Outreach Zone B. So I like to say that I got the 2 borders, and I'm really enjoying getting to know San Diego. I know well because I've lived here 23 years and have done community outreach and engagement in San Diego and Imperial County. But I'm really and I'm enjoying getting to know new parts of San Diego and Imperial, and really, really enjoying getting to know the northern California. So communities of interest, this is where we need you. A community of interest is defined as a concentrated population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district. It can be, we like to say, it's those communities where you live, work, study, and play, and they should stay together for political representation. Examples include people who share similar living standards, have similar culture, similar religions, same transportation facilities, are all home ownership. People can belong to multiple communities of interest, and that's really important. You're not just how you define yourself can be more than one community, so you can submit more than one community of interest map. Keep in mind that communities of interest is not the same as a district, but communities of interest are key building blocks of districts. So you'll have many communities of interest within a district, and sometimes a community of interest may want to be in 2 districts and may say it's okay to split us up because we would want larger representation. Some ways to describe your communities is geographically, your waterways, rural, urban, boundaries, and the things that you have in common. So to participate, start thinking about how you would describe your community or communities. Talk to others about how they would describe your communities. Draw it on a map and send it to us. We've got a great tool, you'll find the tool on our website. The tool, you can find the tool at drawmycacommunity.org or on our website at wedrawthelinesca.org. But basically, the tool, when you go to it, it looks like what's down here at the bottom. It's a map. It looks like a Google map. And then you can zoom down into Encinitas or wherever you want to draw your community of interest. And it'll give you instructions on how to draw your community of interest. And then on the left side, it'll ask you questions about your community. What's great about using this tool is if you put in your email, you don't have to give us your personal information, but if you give us your email and such, you will get a copy of the map that you drew, and you can share it with the other redistricting efforts. I told you that the census data is coming late. Some folks were really smart and saw that things might not go well with the census, and so they had already asked the California Supreme Court if we could extend our deadlines for submitting the map. So originally it was August 15th. The Supreme Court said, okay, we'll let you, if you get the information by July, if you get the census data by July 17th, we'll extend it to December 15th to submit the maps. Well, it looks like we're not going to get the information, the census data we need till September 30th. And so right now we're looking at how we're working with the legislature and others to minimize the impact of the delay on the 2022 elections, because people need to know what districts they would be running for. Here's our timeline, quote unquote, because it keeps changing and basically shares a little bit of what I said. There are 3 phases, is the way I like to say, for input. Right now, you can start sending us your community of input, your maps, or you can wait until we have a public input session to share with us what your communities of interest are. When we collect all the data, we will create our first maps, and you can participate at that time, telling us how you would like to see the lines moved and drawn. We will finally have draft maps to share with the community, and the community can tell us if we got it right or wrong. And then we will be inputting our final, sending our final maps into the Secretary of State. A reminder, I can't take any public comments on the lines, but I can answer questions. And this is how you can contact us. If you have other groups that you think would like a presentation, feel free to send an email to Marcy Kaplan at crc.ca.gov. You can please do follow us on social media so that you get all the updates, because it's changing quickly for us. And that's it. Let me stop sharing so that you can see me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner. I know you're limited in what kind of questions you have, and we're also kind of limited on time, but I did have one question that came in as a direct message on chat that I think is okay. I don't think it's input. It's a question about are undocumented individuals counted for 2020 census purposes? And if they are, do they factor in for redistricting? Or is that something you're allowed to consider?
Yes, I can answer that one. Yes, in the state of California, well, in the Constitution, it says that every individual is supposed to be counted in the census and in the redistricting process, in the reapportionment process. There were questions, last administration wanted to look at that differently. The state of California, our Constitution says that everybody gets counted no matter what. So even if the federal level they had changed things, we wouldn't change it at the California level. And yes, even undocumented can participate in the redistricting process. The other thing that's a little different in California this year is that we have the legislature recommended to us. They can't tell us what to do because we're an independent commission. They can make recommendations. They recommended, and we accepted their recommendation, to count the population in prisons, the people that are in prisons, in their last home address, not where the prison is located. So that will change some of the numbers as well.
Thank you. And then another couple of questions that came in the chat that I think are okay, but if not, I'm sure you'll tell me. One was, can a political party be a community of interest?
No, we're not. We can't look at political parties or create communities of interest based on political parties, but many times political parties that community may be defined in other ways that isn't a political party. So, you know, that I just put that out there so that people can think through, wait, is it really the political party or is it some other issue that is keeping us together?
Okay. And another question, it relates to the late census data. How is there any other ways that will impact redistricting? I know you touched on it at the end of the presentation, but is there any other ways that will impact your work?
I think to me, I see it as a positive, and I've been trying. I was asked to write an op-ed, and I haven't gotten around to it. But I think it's a positive because it's going to give us more opportunities to get out into the community to let people know what redistricting is, because so many people don't know what redistricting is. You know, we call it the stepchild to everything, all the other civic activities. And so we'll have better data on the communities of interest. How it'll affect us, we don't know our timeline right now, if we're actually going to have a shorter timeline to put all the data together and actually draw the maps, or if we will have an extended timeline. We constantly need to keep in mind that folks need to know their districts so that they can run for office. So we're balancing that with the governor's office and the Secretary of State to see what do we do next.
Okay, and we had somebody raise their hand. I'm not able to see who it is. It just says iPhone, and so I'm not sure who it is, but just a reminder that she can't take input. All she can take is kind of questions about the process. So I will call on you. I'm not sure how else I can do it. I'll ask you to unmute, whoever that is.
Hi, it's Michelle Krug. Just a real quick question. If you are, I understand about the public input. If the census data is not going to be in your hands until July or September, I wasn't quite clear. What are you doing now? Because you said that you guys are meeting. So what is it that we be able to give input in?
We're meeting all the time, it feels like it. You know, when the 14 of us were selected, we didn't have staff. So we spent the first part of our getting together in meetings to select staff. Right now, the community can have input through the tool. I know you're on the phone, so you probably weren't able to see the presentation, but we'll hopefully, your club could send out some information exactly on the tool and such. But we're meeting on the whole, getting input on how to do good public outreach and engagement. So we have a lot of coalition members who have groups that have gotten together that are really important on this will call us in and say, you need to think about your translators, or you need to think about this or that issue. July is when we'll get our reapportionment numbers, which means how many congressional districts we'll have in California, and we're hoping in September to get the rest of the census data.
All right. Well, I think I know there's more questions. I had a few more, but I know we're running out of time, and Narima is going to give me the hook. So we're going to have to wrap it up there, but Commissioner, we sincerely appreciate your time and your efforts, and can everybody join me in giving her a quick round of applause?
Thank you, and thanks for being such great neighbors, and please tell at least 3 friends about redistricting so we can, and ask them to tell 3 friends so that we can get a lot of great input. Thank you.
Great, thanks, and I will stop the recording now.